Over the last few days, I've taken a trip down memory lane to look into the simulator that brought me into flight simulation. That's right, in today's video, I'm talking about Flight Simulator X, to be specific, Flight Simulator X Steam Edition. I'll be revisiting a video I made over 2 years ago, questioning if Microsoft Flight Simulator X is worth it. This time, we're in 2022, and a lot has changed since I made that video, so let's get right into it. Okay, so a bit of background. If you're unfamiliar with Flight Simulator X, maybe even some of you watching this video weren't alive when Flight Simulator X was born. Indeed, I was only a little boy. Well, for the last decade or so, up until the release of Microsoft Flight Sim, this was probably the most popular flight simulator out there. Released in 2006, I guess this was the first sort of mainstream simulator, because it came at a time when PCs were getting fairly powerful, at the same time being affordable. So I guess this was the sort of first mainstream simulator. Of course, after Flight Simulator X we did get P3D as well, which was an updated version of Flight Simulator X, and we did get another simulator in the Microsoft Flight Sim installment, which didn't last too long. That was Microsoft Flight Sim Flight, I believe. But that didn't pick up, so Flight Simulator X remained top dog up until the release of Microsoft Flight Sim. In today's video, I'll sort of be reviewing it. Of course, it is an old simulator, so it's not going to be breaking any records. But to be fair, some bits of it have held up for the time, so I'll be going through that today. Let's start off with price. So at the moment, Steam Edition goes on Steam for 20 Great British pounds, but at the moment there's an 80% off sale up until the 27th of September, and that means you can pick up this simulator for £4. Which is what, about €5 or $6 US, so very affordable. You know, it's really pocket money, and I don't think you can get much for £4 nowadays. When you load up Microsoft Flight Simulator X Steam Edition, you'll realise that this is a bit of kit from 2006. The UI feels very old. It's fine, you know, it's to be expected, but when you actually go into the menus, you'll realise that in many ways, comparing it to Microsoft Flight Sim 2020, it hasn't actually changed that much. You know, a lot of the stuff you can do in Microsoft Flight Sim was there in Flight Simulator X before, in principle. In other ways, you know, it's been completely remastered. But to actually talk about the fundamentals of the Flight Simulator X menu, you can do a lot of the stuff some of you will be familiar in Microsoft Flight Sim, from flight planning, VFR or IFR, changing weather, changing date of time, of course, all of that you can do in Flight Simulator X. Now moving over to aircraft. In the default version, there's plenty of aircraft, from the 747 to a CRJ, to an A321, to a Cessna 172, to some more bizarre aircraft, such as aerobatics aircraft and flying boats. But as you head into the cockpit, you'll see a lot of them do feel very 2006. To be fair, some of them have held up better than others. The A321 cockpit looks horrific, but then you move into the Augusta Westland helicopter, and to be fair, it feels relatively modern. I guess that's because they were released at different stages in Flight Simulator X's life. So if you want a realistic aircraft in Flight Sim X, you are going to have to rely on add-ons, and they do actually still exist. You know, PMDG's add-ons for Flight Sim X, although I've never personally tried them, are set to be pretty good. And even now, a lot of former payware has been released to the public for freeware. So I know India Fox Techo released all their Flight Simulator X payware for free not that long ago, which is a pretty nice gesture. They basically said that because they can't offer support, they're just going to release them for free, which is fair enough. So aircraft, a diverse collection, and it does vary greatly. Some add-ons you can pick up for free, although you'd used to have to pay for them. Others you still have to pay quite a bit for. But this isn't a video about add-ons per se, it's just nice to see you've still got that option if you are genuinely considering Flight Simulator X. Now scenery, well, you'll load up and it's very 2000. To be fair, AutoGen does pick up the correct locations of roads and railways and power lines, although a lot of the time you'll realise that the data received is from the early century. So you may find that if you're flying over your house and your house was built sort of after 2007, you won't actually see it. or you won't see any roads, you won't see any railway around your house, that sort of thing. But, to be fair, once again, add-ons can come and save you. There's some really cool add-ons out there, as I'm sharing with you on the screen. So, as a base, it is very 2000s, but it can be plopped up by add-ons, freeware and payware on the internet. Now, moving up into the sky, clouds, surprisingly, aren't that bad. To be fair, they've held up pretty well for their time. Now, don't get me wrong, they're nothing like Microsoft Flight Sims, or X-Plane 12s, or even X-Plane 11s. But in the right lighting conditions, they really don't look that bad. They do look a bit like cotton wool at times. But when you remember this is a bit of software from 2006, it's pretty surprising how well they've held up. And to add to that, sky colours in the daytime, especially at dusk and dawn, are pretty nice as well. Night lighting is a different story, that just looks really bad. If you like flying at night, then I'd probably say move over to X-Plane 11, it looks a lot better, or even X-Plane 12 in that matter. Heading back to aircraft, flight model very much does feel like it's on rails. Of course, it's a bit of kit from 2006. It's nowhere near as advanced as X-Plane 11, X-Plane 12, or Microsoft Flight Sim, so you will feel that. But I don't think anyone's realistically using Flight Simulator X as a bit of kit to train them how to fly. Although saying that, a lot of full motion simulators still rely on Flight Simulator X or P3D, so maybe it can be done, but not in the case of desktop simulation. Now moving over to AI traffic. Out of the box, AI traffic is by all means acceptable. Of course you're not seeing real world airlines or real world routes, but you are seeing pretty good automatic AI traffic. And there's some fantastic tools out there like World of AI, which offers a better performance for AI traffic than Microsoft Flight Sim. So it's one thing where Flight Simulator X is still top dog. I guess it's a credit to the developers of World of AI. They've done a really good job there. Although sadly, a lot of the airlines and liveries are outdated because that one hasn't been updated for about 7 years or so. Speaking about cameras as well, Flight Simulator X has got a really good camera model, instant replays built in, although it's not as seamless as X-Planes, it's still better than Microsoft Flight Sims, which is in beta. And on Flight Simulator X they've got fantastic flyby cameras and tower cameras, something Flight Simulator X doesn't have. I reckon if you put loads of add-ons and loads of time into Flight Simulator X, you could probably make it twice as good as it is out of the box. But for me, who's got Microsoft Flight Sim, it's just not worth that effort. But if you'd like to sit there and really try and improve a simulator, Flight Simulator X has got a pretty good base, even 16 years later. I mean, to be fair, the fact I'm talking about it 16 years after release just shows how good it actually is. It's by no means a good simulator compared to Microsoft Flight Sim, but in the scheme of flight simulators, especially at the time, it was absolutely awesome. Finally, to speak about performance right now, if you've got a low-end laptop, even if you bought it in the last 3 or 4 years, it probably won't have much of an issue running Flight Simulator X. There are some extremes there. In my review over 2.5 years ago, I said for those that won't be able to run Microsoft Flight Sim in the future, Flight Simulator X could provide a good alternative, but with all the performance optimizations on Microsoft Flight Sim right now, unless you've got like an office laptop, then this probably isn't the case anymore, and most people shouldn't really have an issue with running Microsoft Flight Sim in some form. This has been a very nostalgic video for me, and as I said, Flight Simulator X was my entry into flight simulation, so I've definitely got a soft spot for it in my heart. It's certainly a very capable simulator, especially for the time, but right now, in 2022, you just have to look elsewhere. You know, it is 16 years old, it's definitely showing its age, as you've seen in this video. Don't get me wrong, add-ons can improve it massively, but if you want a realistic flight simulation experience, Flight Simulator X isn't the one. That comes at absolutely no surprise to me because it's old, it's 16 years old, it's to be expected. You know, you can't expect this to keep up, but it's still great fun, and to pick it up for £4, I mean, it's a good deal. You can have plenty of fun on Flight Simulator X, even in 2022. It sort of hurts to say that in a way, because I really did used to love coming home from school and learning how to fly a 737 on Flight Simulator X. But I guess it is what it is. From me today, that is all. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this different video. Check out my Amazon affiliate links for all the stuff I use to fly, film and edit. Bye bye.